and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. My co-host Justin Baker and I are back together in studio after a little bit of a social distancing hiatus.
Feels good.
Via Skype, even though it wasn't because we were trying to social distance. It's just because
you needed some time away.
Yeah, I needed a break. I needed my space. So on today's show, obviously the preliminary round is completed, and we now have an actual first round to talk about. And so we are going to give you some predictions for this first round as we dive in. The first round will start when you're listening to this. It's going to start today. It's Monday evening. We're recording this just before the draft lottery, so we don't know the results of that, but in the other show we're releasing, we will know the results, as you can go and listen to that, and we have the live recording of it is what'll happen with it. So go over, listen to that, subscribe to the show, and with that said, let's just jump right in. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference, start with the biggest underdog of the entire playoffs, and that to me is the Montreal Canadiens. They were the 24th team out of 24 to make the playoffs. They beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in deciding fashion in 4 games, and they will take on the Philadelphia Flyers, who have yet to lose.
It's going to be exciting. You know what? It's funny because you talk about powerhouses, right? I mean, you could have a potential like goaltender powerhouse type of matchup. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think Carter Hart's on Carey Price's level yet, but he has that ability, I think. And
well, they're kind of like Carey Price is, definitely into the latter half of his career, but Carey Price was where Hart is right now.
Right.
Like he was the Canadian goaltender who was, he was touted all throughout his career as a guy who was going to be a top goaltender, and here he is doing just that. It's almost like the student and the master.
There you go. Yeah, love it. Bruce Lee and Ip Man. So, you know what? On the flip side, though, you have the hottest team in the Philadelphia Flyers coming into this, a team that basically rolled through the end of the regular season, those last 20-ish some games, and just rolled through their opponents in the preliminary.
It was like they didn't even take a break.
Yeah. It was fantastic. I remember, it was Couturier, and I can't remember who else was involved in it, but it was basically just like he went down in the corner, stole the puck, poked it up, and immediately it goes cross ice, just east-west, so fast, one time in the net. It was just watching them just go tic-tac-toe, like they had been doing this just nonstop for the last 5 weeks.
Yeah. The Flyers look good, and I think that we talked about it before, that we said they have such a good mix of younger players and veterans that they might be in a nice little sweet spot. This could be, they went through this make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, and couldn't really get through and make much of a run. And this year it looks like, hey, they've got a good opportunity because, let's face it, Montreal definitely surprised the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins looked lackluster, to say the least. Their offense just wasn't there for them, and they jumped around between goaltenders. There was just a lot of inconsistency for the Penguins, and Montreal took advantage of it. And when you have a top 10 defenseman like Shea Weber on your team,
you're going to rub this one in for a while.
It's the one thing that I have coming out of these qualifiers.
I will eat crow on that one, though. I will say he showed up. He embarrassed my lips.
Was phenomenal.
Yeah,
he was phenomenal. And between him and Carey Price, that was that. We saw in a couple other series where defense won in these qualifiers. Outside of the Chicago-Edmonton series, it was fairly low scoring. It was definitely much more defensive, and I will be honest, I thought that offenses would be kind of like doing much better, because a lot of times at the beginning of the regular season we see tons more goals scored because the defenses in the system isn't in place yet, and you're kind of just letting guys go, and that just was not the case. Like, teams were dialed in, everyone was playing the best defensive hockey that some of these teams we've seen them play, and so it kind of shifted for me. Honestly, the qualifiers, as exciting as the idea was, and as exciting as the hype for it was, like this crazy thing that's never happened before. One series went to 5 games. And while that series certainly had moments, it was a boring series for the most part. Like, it was pretty just snoozer, and then some crazy stuff happens. And that was kind of that Montreal-Pittsburgh series. It was a lot of just neutral zone play. There wasn't a whole lot happening. Carey Price was making good saves, but Carey Price isn't a guy who makes highlight reel saves on a regular basis, right? Like, he's just in such good positioning that it made the Penguins look like they couldn't actually create any offense. Like, nothing looked that hard for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, and that's what great goaltenders do. They make it look easy, right? You don't have to be sprawling everywhere and doing 100 flips. Gosh, I remember what was.
Why were you always doing 100 flips?
Yeah, let's not get into that. I mean, gosh, what was it, that James Reimer sequence where you had Sami Vatanen making a shoulder save, and Carey Price didn't have to do that kind of stuff because he was there in position, and then, like you talked about, the three guys in front of him on defense, between Shea Weber, Petrie, those guys were just rock solid for him, and Ben Sherratt even too. I mean, there's the third wheel in that
a little
equation,
underrated Ben Sherratt. Yeah, he's won a cup and. Right, he
and looked pretty good. So
yeah, he does. All right, well, who do you got for this series?
Gosh, you know what? I think the gas is running out. If Montreal can't find a way to score goals, right? Because we talked about it. We'll talk about it a little bit more in our show about the preliminaries, but basically, Montreal had a hard time scoring goals, and if they have to rely on Carey Price and defense for the entirety of this series, it's going to be hard, right? Obviously, we know Philly can score, and they can score a lot of goals, and then they can get good goaltending from Carter Hart. So to me, I got to go with Philadelphia.
Two underrated moves for the Philadelphia Flyers: getting Matt Niskanen, which I at the time I think a lot of people went, oh yeah, that's a good move for them, and obviously they gave up Radko Gudas, who was kind of that sandpaper type of player, also got himself into trouble here and there, and I think Matt Niskanen really calms that right side down. But then also, maybe even more so, the fact that acquiring Justin Braun back there has been just a great move for the Flyers. Defensively, much stronger than they have been in the past, and I think a very, very dangerous team. And really, it's going to be the Carter Hart. Like, how does Carter Hart play? Those three games, in reality, they meant nothing,
right?
Because you could lose all of them, and the
just
same
like
thing happens.
But one's discrediting them and thinking, oh, they're finished now.
Right. Same with Boston. Still struggled, and it's fine because those games meant nothing. Like, okay, the Flyers had a great few games, but how much were those teams given it?
And there's no real home ice advantage
we just don't know.
Either.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no home ice advantage. I guess it would be that, you do get the last change and all that.
The home teams are eliminated technically, so.
Yeah. Yep. No more home teams. Everyone's an away team. But I do like the Flyers in this one. I think that they will get past the first round. I don't think that Montreal will be as big of a problem as they were for the Pittsburgh Penguins. A little hungrier is my guess.
There you go.
Flyers.
I like that. Hungrier.
A little hungrier. Yeah. Okay, let's go to Tampa and Columbus, a rematch of last year's sweepage.
This has got juice written all over it. It's going to be a juicy series.
It is. I'm excited to see it. I'm bummed that it's the series that we're seeing. I would have really liked to be honest, as much as I like if I'm sitting back, if I'm not a Leafs fan and I'm just sitting back and I want to see the Leafs advance, because Columbus is boring as hell. They're not fun to watch. That collapse 2-1-2 keep everybody off to the side and five guys surround the net and turn their heads and hope that it hits somebody on its way in, and oftentimes they do block it, and it's just not that fun. A Tampa-Toronto series would have been more fun. There's no doubt about that. But nevertheless, an interesting rematch here. Any difference that you see in Tampa Bay? We'll get to Columbus. We know Columbus doesn't have the same players as they did last year on the high end, but Tampa, What do you think the difference this year is going to be for them?
Oh, I think this year they realize they can get beat by any team, right? I think last year maybe there was a little bit of cockiness coming in, just, oh gosh, we won 62 games. Like, I mean, I don't know, what the mood was like.
What are the chances we're going to lose 4?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I don't think guys in the locker room were saying, okay, good, these guys are a joke. Columbus is a joke. We're just going to go out and pummel them. I don't think at any point they were saying that in the locker room, but I think there was probably a little, mentality, in the way they played that says, okay, cool, we're not going to get swept by these guys. I don't think they ever thought that, and so they probably came out with their chest puffed a little large, and this year it's going to be a little different, right? I don't think we're going to see a sweep again, obviously. I think Tampa's going to be a little bit more cautious in how they play their game, and, really I think they've had a lot of time to really look back at that series and think, okay, what did we do wrong? What was Columbus doing that really hampered us and really kept us from winning? And I think they're gonna look at all that film and they'll figure it out real quick. John Cooper's a really smart coach. I think he'll go in there, dive in with the video and the team there, and hopefully work it out, because I don't want to see a sweep again.
No. Well, and we don't know yet, but Stamkos and Hedman look like they might be missing game 1 at least.
Right.
Now a couple there. One nice thing is when you have a player who wasn't there the year before, like Barclay Goodrow wasn't there last year, and Blake Coleman wasn't there last year. So a couple guys that weren't, and Kevin Shattenkirk wasn't there either. So you at least have some guys who weren't a part of what happened. You're coming in fresh, and those are 2 guys, especially Blake Coleman, that you almost, I kind of forgot about him.
Right.
And he's somebody who actually can make a legitimate difference. He could score a couple goals in a series that could be the difference. And when you think Columbus, like Blake Coleman, if we're talking, who does Blake Coleman remind you of on Columbus? You're thinking maybe like a Cam Atkinson to a lesser extent, just slightly. I mean, Cam Atkinson is the only pure goal scorer on that team now, and Blake Coleman just really has never been put in that situation to where he can be a top line player. But I think that he could probably score more than the 20 goals that he scored. But Tampa Bay has players that Columbus has on their first line playing on their third line,
right?
So you'd think that they should be able to make the push. Now in the 9 games, I should say 12 games that he's played with Tampa, he actually has 1 assist. But I expect that to change for him. I hope that they can find a spot for him in the lineup, and with Stamkos out, that could shift some guys around too. So I don't want to see Tampa eliminated here. I really don't want to. But Columbus plays in such a way that I think it causes other teams to squeeze their stick a little too tight. Is it going to happen twice? Like, are they like still in their heads, or is it kind of like, if we just relax, we could beat these guys?
Well, listen, I mean, we saw Pittsburgh and Washington for so many years, right? Pittsburgh just had Washington's number.
Yeah,
they just couldn't do it, and maybe this is that same kind of matchup where just Tampa can't get over that hump of Columbus, and again, this hasn't been going on for as many years as that rivalry has, or it doesn't have that same level of distinction. But again, Columbus's style of play really hampers a lot of those fast-paced, high-scoring teams like this.
Yeah.
And you really have to have good coaching, good depth to really get around this, because Columbus is not going to try to outscore you. That's just not their style. And so I think if you're Tampa, again, you're not trying to go fast-paced. You're not going to try to, really. You're gonna be patient, because you have the skill set of guys, depth-wise, to just really wait out Columbus and say, okay, if they make a mistake, we got guys even on our third line that can capitalize and score some goals.
Yeah.
So hopefully Tampa wises up. They don't try to play the same style they did last year. Stamkos and Hedman, if they lose them for a game or two in a 7-game series versus, these 5-game series, you can rebound from that. You got guys that can fill in, like you talk about, a Shattenkirk can eat up some minutes now on that back end. And, even a guy like Sergachev, he's a year older, right? So
yeah, you're going to see that.
Yeah, ultimately,
that maturity, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, ultimately, I I'm with you. I don't want Tampa Bay eliminated here. I don't think this is a series where, yeah. I mean, all in all, I still want to pick Tampa for this series.
Yeah, I want to, but I feel like I'm a little bit like, I mean, should I not pick against Columbus? Because every time I do, I am going to stick with Tampa. I just think they got to get some revenge here, and I think it'll be really tight. I think that it'll go probably 6 games. I think they can pull it off in 6. I think also that Leafs series, they went into overtime 2 times. They've played 3 games. They played 3 games of 4 nights, and they got 1 day off, and they're going to play. I guess they'll probably play on Wednesday, right? But they have played some hard fought games thus far, and Tampa Bay is, I think, rearing and ready to go. I think Tampa Bay takes game 1, and that'll kind of set the tone for the rest of the series. Columbus will be playing catch up.
Yeah, first game's going to be on Tuesday, so 3 p.m.
Oh, it is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, it is Tuesday.
3 p.m. Eastern.
First game on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So the first game on Tuesday, and they just got done playing Sunday, and they also played Friday, and they also played Thursday. So they definitely, I know they've had a lot of time off, but at the same time, a lot of time off can mean that a lot of games back to back are going to exhaust you more because you're not in that mid-season grind shape kind of thing.
Right.
And I don't think we said how many games we thought.
Not for the Philly series, no.
Yeah.
If you want, we can throw that in. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I'll say that the Flyers are going to win that one in 6.
Okay. I'll go 5 for Philly.
Okay.
As far as the Tampa Bay series is concerned, I will say I'm still going to stick with my Stanley Cup picking Tampa to win. So ultimately, I do think they win this series.
That's who you picked at the very beginning of the year.
Yeah, I picked them to go up against Colorado. So
that's right.
However, I will say with the Tampa series, when I was filling out my NHL.com bracket, they were the only series in this official first round that I picked to go 7 games. So I think it'll go the distance.
Okay, all right, that'll be fun. Okay, let's go to Washington and the New York Islanders. And for some reason, I'm just getting glimpses of 1993.
Wow,
I think it was 93 when they went into like 5 overtimes together.
Oh yeah, that series.
Pretty sure that was that. Yeah.
Hopefully not. I don't want to stay up that late.
This series is real interesting to me because the Islanders are kind of that. Islanders are very similar to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Actually, I think they have a little bit better of an upfront forward group in their top 6, a little more talented, but they don't have the same type of back end that Columbus has. Like Seth Jones was so good in that preliminary round series. New York Islanders are a little bit more do it by committee on the back end, and I think when you compare those two teams, they come out looking very similar, and Washington might not fare well against that type of play.
Yeah, I will agree with you. I do think, when you look at the Islanders forward group, it's a lot of guys that like to grind, a lot of guys that like to go hard, but they do have a little bit more skill, right? They've got Barzell, they've got Jordan Eberle.
Eberle. Yeah.
And Eberle seems to be built for the playoffs for some reason. Like he's okay in the regular season. Playoffs, he just shows up. He did it, obviously this past.
And Edmonton wouldn't
series.
Know that.
Yeah. Just the opposite.
Because they never got there.
Yeah, congrats to Taylor Hall on first series ever win. But,
hey!
Yeah, this series is going to be very intriguing to me because I do think the Islanders, I don't know if I want to call them underdogs, but I don't think people are going to take them as seriously considering, last year when we saw how poorly they played against Carolina in that sweep of the series.
I mean, in fairness, they beat the Penguins the year before,
right.
The round before. So
yeah, but again, if you get into a scoring battle, can the Islanders keep up with the Washington Capitals? Because we know Ovechkin, Oshie, Backstrom, Kuzi, those guys can go out and put up points like crazy. Veranda, those guys will go up and put the goals up. But when you look at the type of system the Islanders play, I don't know if maybe Washington, especially because a lot of those, I hate to say it, a lot of those guys are getting older. Now they're not relying on speed anymore, and you've got a fast team with the Islanders who like to shut it down. And, you look at it, right? of the teams that played 4 more games, the Islanders gave up the second fewest shots against. In total they gave up the fewest shots against. But So again, I don't know. Maybe the Washington Capitals can put up a few more shots than their opening round partner. But this one's got upset written all over it for me, because I think the Islanders do have an opportunity to shut down a team that maybe their window is getting closing, but the Islanders are just like, I don't think they even have a Stanley Cup window right now, but they're like, screw it, I don't care, whatever, we're just going to go out and play.
Yeah, these two teams were 2-2 against each other in the regular season, so we're not getting much there.
Right.
Not that makes a huge difference come playoff time. I will say, JG Pajot has made a huge difference for this Islanders team. I think he was really good in the opening preliminary round. He had 3 goals in 4 games, so he was definitely a spark plug on offense, and I expect that to continue. The Islanders are probably a better team than we make them out to be. It's just because they don't have that high end, other than Barzal, which I think Barzal, on the one hand, you're like, oh, Barzal, he could be a top 20 center in the league. But at the same time, you also go, okay, is he going to be a true number 1 long term, or is he more of a really good second line center who could play first line center when you surround him with the right guys in the right system, which this seems to be the right system for him. And that's I think some of the question when it comes to Barzal. So when I look at this series, of course, if it's a super defensive series, then it's all Islanders to me. Like, I think the Islanders could win the series in 5 games if it stays in a very tight checking, low scoring type of affair. But if this series starts to, the goals start to pick up, goaltenders don't play as well, then advantage Washington big time. And we know that usually it's not one or the other. Usually there's a game here where it's more offensive, and then there's some more defensive games. So I think with Washington's experience, because they have played a whole lot of different types of teams, I think that they have the ability to push this one pretty far. I think they're going to go 7 games again, but I do think that the Islanders are going to win in 7.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny. I think you're copying my notes here, because I too have the Islanders winning this series, because again, I think this is going to be a very tight, hard, kind of in your face series, where I think, maybe, the Islanders right now are a little bit better built systematically, if you get those low scoring games. Yep. And ultimately, I do think this is what...
And I think they have a better coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And he knows the team that he's playing on the other side.
Absolutely, he does.
So, which played a huge factor in why I think the Islanders are poised to upset the Capitals here.
All right.
I'm going to go 6, though, not 7.
Okay, in 6. Okay. Let's roll on to Boston and Carolina. I think the only team to sweep in the first round, Carolina, and the only team to lose all their game. Well, one of two teams to lose all their game. The Boston Bruins. So Carolina coming in here probably feeling pretty good about their first round against the Rangers. The Rangers are definitely no Bruin. They are very, very different. But I will say this, Carolina absolutely shut Artemi Panarin down. And if they can do that to all 3 guys on the ice at the same time, Marchand, Pasternak, and Bergeron, then I think they've got obviously a good shot at beating Boston, who did not look good. Chara looked brutal, and I just wonder, with Carolina's depth on defense, I don't think they really have to worry about that top line being out there against particular players.
Right. They did it without Dougie Hamilton.
If they get Dougie Hamilton back, then you're in a whole other ballpark. They can just move the puck to their forwards so well. Have so many puck movers on that back end.
Yeah, that top line for Carolina, I mean, gosh, Sebastian Aho was a beast in that opening series against the Rangers. And I think this series was one that I was more intrigued about than any other series with the Rangers and the Hurricane, and then it was over quicker than any of them, which just was so disappointing, because I was hoping to see the likes of Aho, Panarin go the distance. Yeah. But again, when you look at Boston, right, they didn't really, like you talked about, Char not looking that great. they're a one-trick pony in my mind. If their top line's not rolling, it's very difficult, to get production from their other 9 forwards. And, again,
Charlie Coyle is maybe the straw that stirs the drink on that other line.
So you can look at Coyle, Krejci, and think, okay, these guys are going to have to pick it up, because I do think, again, when you talked about that depth on defense, Carolina can roll any one of their 6 guys out there against this top line, and I wouldn't worry about it at all. And the way Carolina's built to go hard, fast, forecheck, and just go north-south, Boston, a lot of those guys like Krejci and Coyle, they're maybe not as speedy. They maybe don't get up and down the ice as fast as some of the guys in Carolina. And so, they'll probably keep up for the most part. But if you have to start grinding it out, I don't know if the depth at the forward position is going to be able to outlast the depth at the defensive position for Carolina.
Yeah.
And then the other question mark for me is, too, what Peter Mrazek are we going to get? Because he looked good. He looked very good in the opening round.
That's true.
And so did James Reimer for the one game he got in there. And so, obviously,
it just kind of showed you how good their defense is.
Right, exactly. And that's the other thing.
They probably have the worst goaltending in the playoffs.
Right, yeah.
I can't think of another team with a worse goaltending duo than Carolina.
Right. Pre-playoffs, if you'd looked at every single team in here and looked at their goaltending, I'd say that's probably the one I want least, right?
I still feel that way, actually.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think you could take any other goaltender and put them in that situation, and they would do better than either of those guys.
Okay, yeah. So, again, and you looked at Mrazek's numbers, they were pretty freaking good. So,
you won 3 games. So, in a sweep, usually your goaltender is going to play pretty well. Granted, Chicago beat Edmonton in 4 games, and you look at both goaltender stats and make you want to throw up.
Yeah, so ultimately, that's the X factor for me, is the goaltender for Carolina. If they can literally just,
as long as they get average goaltending, I think they win. I think they win in like 6 games.
Yeah, I'm exactly there with you, because I don't think Boston has the depth at the forward position to, if they get into a scoring battle with Carolina, to outscore them. And then I think I look at that defense. I think Chara is on his way out. Again, we talked about those opening round games, and he didn't look very good. Can they rely on
he
Torrey
didn't really look. He hasn't looked great. Even last year in the playoffs, he was exposed by Toronto's speed. I think there's probably too much for the Bruins to overcome here. I think I don't hate to say it, because I don't really like the Bruins as a Leafs fan, because they've tortured me. But I think the Bruins are still, for the next few years, they're still going to be a team that makes the playoffs and has the potential to go on a little run. But I don't think that they're not the team to beat anymore.
No.
In the East, they're a team. Yeah, sure. Could they get hot? Could that top line go and have an unbelievable series and beat anyone? Yes, absolutely. I don't see it happening here against Carolina. I think Carolina is too deep, and Boston is maybe just kind of showing their age a little bit.
Yeah, it's 2020. We're going to have some,
something weird's going to happen.
Yeah, and if you think about it, right, if you see Washington, Boston, Pittsburgh all out by the first round, end of the first round, how weird of a playoff picture does that look like in the East?
Very strange.
So 2020 right there.
Yeah.
So I've got them in 5. You got them in how many games?
I got them in 6.
All right, 6.
Carolina in 6. We are off to the Western Conference. We're off to Edmonton, where no Oiler is to be found. Let's start with the number 1 seed, the Vegas Golden Knights, going against the 23rd ranked team, the Chicago Blackhawks, the team that had no business being in this spot. And here they find themselves. We said in the first round that there's no way they could handle the Oilers. I said it was the most likely series to be a sweep, and I was more wrong than I wish to admit.
I didn't pick a sweep, but I did not pick Chicago.
I did say that it was going to be a very high-scoring series. At least I was right about something. There was 3 things I said that actually happened. The rest, I'm not talking just that series. I'm talking about every series. I struggled with that first round. And, it's funny, because when I go around and I look at different people's predictions from all over the internet, no one did very well. No one was picking Montreal and Chicago, so that was kind of a auto 0-2. It was kind of one of those, Mason State or whatever, George Mason, that's what I'm thinking. George Mason kind of brackets.
Oh.
NCAA, where they just, everything gets busted because there's a few upsets, and,
right.
And away we go. Yeah, this Vegas team, they looked real good in the qualifier. Well, I guess in the round robin, and they take on the Chicago Blackhawks, who really looked like, out of any team that advanced to the next round, they looked like a completely different team than what they looked like in the regular season.
Yeah, I will say Duncan Keith looked about 10 years younger. And he played like 27 minutes a game still.
Yeah.
Which was
he looked
amazing.
fantastic. I mean, Kubalik, holy crap. He was lights out for this team. I mean, Kirby Dach looked pretty good. He looked like he took an off season, came back and was a little bit better. I mean, I'd say that Jonathan Taves, he showed up. He's not necessarily a guy he's not always going to score goals anymore. He's not always going to have crazy points at the end of a series, but he won some key faceoffs. I mean, in the Edmonton series, he was fantastic. 7 points. Yeah. Dylan Strome looked like, man, that deal that they made with Arizona, that's looking like it's going to be a steal, and Strome is kind of coming into his own here, and I really like the Chicago Blackhawks. Look,
wow!
I don't know if I'm going to say that like they're going to be able to beat the Golden Knights here in the first round, but they look like they belong here.
Yeah, I will say they're going to definitely make it a lot more interesting than I figured any 8 seed would, in this tournament here, because
they're a 12 seed, just
technically, yes, but NHL.com.
I was reading and it was like 4 versus a 6. What is this? Because of Boston, Carolina, it was like 4 and a 6. What did I miss here? It was like, okay.
Yeah.
They didn't like reseed.
Well, actually, on NHL.com, they did.
Oh, NHL.com, I thought was, somewhere they didn't reseed them.
Yeah, why would you? But I would still give them the 12 and just slap it on there, because it's
more fun.
More of a badge of honor when you look at it. You're like, we're the 12 and we're there.
It's like NCAA. You don't like reseed people and go, right. Oh, it's an 8 now. No,
right,
they're
exactly.
a 12 seed.
Yeah. So Chicago just looks like they've been rejuvenated, right? This break did them a whole hell of a lot of good. So, you've got, normally I would have expected if Toronto, or if Chicago was going to beat Edmonton, I would have figured it would have been because Kane would have taken over the series and Corey Crawford would have shut everybody down. Not the case here at all.
Corey Crawford didn't stop much at all.
He barely below par goaltending.
Granted, Kane still had a point per game.
Right.
But it's not like he was bad or anything.
He wasn't lights out. He was still good,
yeah.
But he wasn't lights out. And it's because this team got scoring from every line. They weren't just a one-trick pony and showed up. And not only that, but then their defense showed up. I mean, Duncan Keith, 4 points in 4 games, and they still managed to get some production from, Koku and, Connor Murphy. And, look like they could roll out another pair besides Duncan Keith and whomever else he was playing with.
Sure, yeah. It is going to be a much better first round. Like if you told me a month ago, hey, Chicago's actually going to beat Edmonton, and then they're going to play Vegas, to be like, well, that's fun, but they're going to get trucked by Vegas. It could be a tight series.
I will say the one thing I am looking forward to, even though it was a short stint, I cannot wait to see Robin Lehner play Chicago.
Yes, that will be fun.
Yes.
And that is the biggest difference between this series and playing Edmonton for Chicago, is now you have to face a top 10 goaltender in the league, likely.
Not only that, granted, yes, it was, a hiccup of a game for Marc-Andre Fleury, but still, if you're Vegas, you're still confident and comfortable with going to Marc-Andre if Robin Lehner falters or get injured.
Yep.
So if you're Chicago, just the opposite. I'm not touching Malcolm Subban. Your series is over with if you got to put him in net. So
Vegas knows all about that.
Right.
It would be tough to pick Chicago to win in this round, and that pretty much speaks volumes. Is like, I don't think I've seen anybody pick the Chicago Blackhawks to win this series, which means I better pick the Chicago Blackhawks to win this series because weird crap's been happening all year. I think the Chicago, I sort of say that in like I'm not saying it in a joking way. I really mean, I think the Chicago Blackhawks are going to beat the Vegas Golden Knights.
All right.
It's going to be insane.
I will say they do have a chance.
Some team is going to do this.
Yes.
Like there's going to be a team that everybody goes, oh crap, they're in the second round. It always happens. But yet our picks usually don't reflect that because it's easier to just, pick the better team, especially when it's 1-8. Yeah, I'm going Chicago.
All right. I love it.
Chicago's going to beat Vegas, and they're going to beat them in, game-wise, 7 games.
7, okay.
I think you're going to look at a game 7, you're going to go, Chicago knows how to win these games.
That's awesome.
And then your Patrick Kane will have the hat trick, and everyone will.
I respect it. I mean,
Chicago Blackhawks. That's it. That's my pick.
Listen, if you can take down Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, the difference for me is Vegas isn't necessarily like,
Vegas is better
superstars.
Goaltending. Yep.
Yeah, we've got a depth at the forward position. We got guys that we can roll on 3 lines. So,
and they look good in the first round, or in the exhibitions.
They looked real good. And that's why I'm picking Vegas, but in 6 games.
Okay. Let's move on. Colorado, Arizona. Arizona shocks the Nashville Predators, but didn't shock us because we had Arizona winning.
Indeed. One of the few I got right.
Taylor Hall wins it. Yeah, me too. I was 3-5 in the first round. Taylor Hall wins his first series, and this series is going to be fascinating because Darcy Kemper was awesome in that series against Nashville.
But he stopped 49 shots on that last game.
He was fantastic.
Ridiculous.
I think he was the best. He was the best goalie in that first round, even better than Carey Price was against the Penguins.
I won't disagree with that,
because I think that Nashville threw everything they had. Granted, their high end talent level isn't anywhere close to what Colorado has, but it was Darcy Kemper has played fantastic. No doubt about that. Colorado is gonna have to figure out how to beat them. This entire year, nobody's really figured out how to beat them very often, and they were 1-1 against each other. So we don't get much help there in the regular season.
Yeah, Darcy Kemper faced more shots than any other goaltender in that opening round.
Yeah,
so
there you
go. No shocker there, and only in 163 shots, only gave up 11 goals. Fantastic.
And their offense played okay.
Yeah, and it was funny. I was listening to an interview with Rick Tocchet, and they're talking about, all season long, right? They had, or at least when the trade happened, they had Taylor Hall on the first line, Kessel on the second line, and then Clayton Keller on the third line, kind of to spread out those snipers a little bit, because this is a team that isn't necessarily known for goal scoring and having a bunch of snipers, and now they kind of have that, those couple big names to score some goals, but he kind of mentioned, he's like, yeah, I don't know if we're going to do that again this series in Colorado, because he said, look, you've got, a team that's not necessarily going to, try to shut you down defensively. They're going to go out there and they're going to go fast and they're going to go hard, whereas, Nashville, more or less, I guess they might have tried to rely, at least his thinking was they were going to rely more on their, their defensive prowess and goaltending.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, it worked out well for Arizona in that first round. Whether or not they keep Hall and Kessel together, to me, it really doesn't matter, because to me, the interesting matchup is going to be down the middle, where you've got, McKinnon and Kadri versus whomever they put out there for Arizona.
Which is exactly why Arizona is definitely not going to beat Colorado. Colorado is just too deep. They can move the puck so well. They're going to have possession the whole freaking time.
Yeah, that's the thing. Possession, right? And so I think if Darcy Kemper has to go another series, even if it's 5 games again or 7 full games, where he has to take on 200 shots,
it's going to be too difficult. Yeah.
Can you keep up that kind of production? And they say that Rantna might be coming back again, but he's not going to start regardless. But
it's nice to know that he's there, but.
Yeah, and if you're Arizona, right, too, are you going to OEL? Are you going to put him out there for literally 30 minutes a game? Is he going to be able to handle, right? They'll probably put OEL out there against the McKinnon line, and then that second line with Kadri, they'll probably roll out with Jarmelson and Goligoski. But I again, when you start getting even deeper on this team, I don't think Arizona is going to be able to,
it's just too much. It's
too much. That defensive system, I just think it's way too much. It's going to overload them. And
this is a great start, though, for Arizona. If they can build upon this, then I think that they're in a good spot. I think that as much as everyone's angry at John Chaika, he has set them up for the future. And if they can somehow re-sign Taylor Hall or do something with that money to bring people in there, and they can tell, good players can tell that something good's happening there, I think that Arizona could be a destination spot. I mean, people love living there. Yeah. So it's only a matter of time before players start to flock there.
My sister lives there, loves it.
In their older, you start to sign those 32 plus, aged players, you can kind of build yourself a nice little niche down there, and they can be a team that more consistently makes the playoffs, which is, definitely what builds a better fan base is the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I'm going Colorado in 6.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I have Colorado in 5 games. Ultimately, I think it's just too much for Arizona.
Okay. Let's do Dallas and Calgary. The Dallas Stars looked not great in the round robin, but that's just...
I don't think they wanted to.
I don't think they cared at all. It looked like they did not care at all. They knew... They didn't care who they played, because no matter what, they know they're going to have to shut people down. And the Calgary Flames, to me, in their series against Winnipeg, they showed how nasty they are. And Matthew Tkachuk was a monster.
Milan Lucic showing up for that series.
Cheech
looked good.
And now they find themselves playing the Dallas Stars. And I think that this is actually a series that Calgary could win. If they have, like, Goudreau, finally, you felt like something was coming on with Goudreau when he scored. And I think this team is trending in the right direction. Dallas is another. They're the Western Conference Columbus Blue Jackets, New York Islanders. They just happen to have these two guys that are incredibly good on the front end, Ben and more so Sagan, but they haven't exactly showed up this year on the scoreboard so much. And so I wonder, this first round, Calgary might have a shot, but only if they get great goaltending. Because we know Dallas, I don't care, but you and Nate have good goaltending.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a backhanded compliment that was meant to be a better compliment than I gave you.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, we know Ben Bishop is going to shut the door and this team's going to lock it down defensively. So the question for Calgary is, if they have to engage in those 2-1 sort of games, can they survive, right? Can Talbot give them the type of goaltending they need? Because, he's going to have to do a lot better. Obviously, Winnipeg decimated by injuries.
Yeah.
They're going to have a much better center on their top line than Winnipeg certainly did with Adam Lowry there.
Yep.
So can you match up, right? And now, not only that, but I think this is the type of series where you're going to see Joe Pavelski show up. It's his time to shine because he didn't look it in the regular season.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice. And that would change things for Dallas. I don't see that happening, though.
Okay.
He just does not look good, and it's not like he showed much in the round robin.
2 goals, but again, are we going to get that? I mean, look, Dallas only had 2 guys in those opening round robin games that scored more than a point. So your guys are going to have to produce. And again, I get it. Like, a lot of these guys didn't play a lot of heavy minutes. You had Rupe Hintz out there for 15. Yeah. He's going to see more time than that, in this series. And Miro Heiskanen, though, looked good to me.
Dallas is just one of those teams that I think you want to pick against all the time because at least for me, I don't want Dallas. I like Jim Nill, but I don't want Dallas
so Dallas isn't a team that, as a hockey fan, I want to see on the ice, right? As just a general hockey fan that I want to go watch all the time. So, you hope they lose, much like Columbus. They're just not fun to watch.
Right. And but I would say I think ultimately they probably will beat the Calgary Flames because I think Calgary has been shown that they can be shut down rather easily when they come across a team that can use their speed to move the puck. And ultimately, I think Dallas will find themselves in the second round again, and I think they probably have to play the St. Louis Blues again. And that'll be a fun rematch. But I got to go Dallas. I'm going to say Dallas in 7, though.
Okay.
Could be a tight series.
Yeah.
I think they can close the door, though. Their goaltending would just be too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to go 7. However, I think Calgary wins.
All right.
So I got to pick one different finally.
Good. Let's go. Last one, St. Louis and Vancouver. Vancouver probably, to me, was the most fun team to watch outside of Chicago in that first round. And Edmonton was really fun to watch, too. Who gets 10 points in those? Isn't that how many points McDavid had? 10 points?
Oh, he had 9.
9 points.
Yeah.
And they lost. That's sad. St. Louis Blues defending Stanley Cup champions against the newbies. The Vancouver Canucks, maybe the fastest team in the playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah. Listen, if it gets into a grind, which I know St. Louis wants to make it that way, Vancouver's really got no shot. Because if you got, don't get me wrong, I love their speedy guys. Brock Besser, Pettersson's great. However, if you get into a grind, I think Vancouver's really only got a couple guys that can really go the distance, and that's Bo Horvat and JT Miller. Those guys will grind with you, and I really love them as secondary scorers or first line scorers if you want to consider them for Vancouver, because technically that's their top line. But regardless, this is a good learning experience for Vancouver. I think they're still young, they're still growing. You know, a guy like Quinn Hughes, you know, he's a power play guy, and he's going to learn real hard. I think, you know, what it's like to face a team that can go 4 lines deep, 5-on-5 on you, and, you know, can he keep up? Ultimately, I don't think he does in this series, but hey, if I'm wrong, that would be fantastic for Vancouver. I mean, shoot, you know, they win this series, that'd be great. Ultimately, I think you know where I'm going with this, but I just can't pick against St. Louis right now, being the defending champs and the way they play.
Stanley Cup champs, are they going to get knocked off by Vancouver? It would be a very difficult series for Vancouver to win, but ultimately, I'm going to pick Vancouver to win this series.
Wow, we're
going to have a new Stanley Cup champion.
Okay,
and Vancouver is going to win this series in 5 games.
Wow. Okay, I picked 5-2, but
it's going to be a weird series. And a weird
that's
playoff.
2020 for you right there.
Gotta go weird.
Yeah, St. Louis in 5 for me. So,
all right. Well, there are our picks for the first round. We'll listen to our other episode on the NHL Draft Lottery, and you'll hear our live reactions to the lottery. So enjoy that, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Follow us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk, and we're looking forward to the first round.